Hello and welcome to the Albion Obsessed podcast. That was an insanely loud introduction in the old ear holes. Welcome back. This is the start of the fourth season of the Albion Obsessed podcast. That's right. We've been going for, this will be our fourth year, which is absolutely bonkers. Joe, as founder of the Albion Obsessed podcast, how does that make you feel?
Yeah, good to be back. First of all, it's been a while. I think the last time we came on was to talk to Stephen, which was a great episode. Good to see what he's doing at the Tunnel Club. But yeah, fourth season of the Albion Obsessed podcast. Absolutely loving it. We've had some amazing guests along the way. Hopefully, we can get back on the guest train this season. We'll be making a few contacts here and there. But yeah, good to be here, mate. How are you?
Yeah, man, I'm good. It's good to be back. The end of last season, a bit like the club. It was hard for me to stay consistent on the AO because I've got zillions of one things going down. But you know what? It's really nice to be back. Looking forward to the summer of content and football. But less about that and more about Dagan and his lovely beard. Dagan, welcome back, my friend. How are you keeping?
Pardon me. I was trying to hook up the chat feature there, and it was making me log in, and I couldn't unmute myself.
He's getting ready. He has a lot to say. He has a lot to say.
I do. I always have a lot to say. I always have probably too much to say. But Tom, I'm doing quite well. It's nice to be back. It's the heat of summer here, so we've been roasting stateside, as has the transfer window buzz just heating up. And I guess we're going to talk about that. But no, it's nice to be back. And I guess this is the third season of which I've been a part of this fine group, which is kind of wild. Picked me up midstream.
Yeah, that again, that's absolutely bonkers. We are live, of course. So, guys, as we discuss, as Dagan says, lots to discuss today in terms of transfers. We need to talk about our new head coach, obviously. Drop comments in the chat, and we'll address them in due course. I'm sure we'll have a lot to say on one particular transfer rumbling that has been quashed today. But less about that and more about Kurtis, bloody friend. Kurtis, bloody friend. How are you, my bloody friend?
I'm good. Yeah, very, very good. Glad to be back with you chaps and talk about more Brighton stuff, of course, if we must. Right, if we must. But yeah, let's just jump right in.
No, Kurtis, we're not going to jump right in because I'm going to take you back to the last time I did a podcast on the Albion Obsessed, and that was in response to Roberto De Zerbi leaving, which seems like a million years ago now, an absolute million years ago. Tail end of last season, of course. We went through a period where we didn't know who our head coach was going to be. There was lots of names linked, including one Graham Potter. Some other names that were less favorable, but we did end up making an appointment, and we have appointed a man who will be the youngest full-time head coach of a Premier League team in Fabian Hürzeler. An exciting signing, Joe. Very young, 31, younger than me, which is goddamn depressing. What did you make of the signing? I mean, I know it happened obviously a couple of weeks ago now, but coming from Bundesliga 2 from St. Pauli, taking them from a relegation threatened team to promotion in his first season in charge, monumental achievement, really exciting future ahead.
Yeah, I when the name was sort of mentioned, I looked him up. I'd done quite a lot of reading on him. He seems to play quite a similar style of football to Roberto De Zerbi. Actually visited the club, I think, in December last year, and saw our 4-2 win against Spurs, which is great. And he said he felt like a fan. So I think the wording that's come out from Hürzeler already has warmed me to him, which is really good considering we haven't seen a full interview from him, and we've only seen like a 12-second video of him on his holiday saying can't wait to see you all. So yeah, I'm really excited by the appointment. I think it's going to be a really interesting thing that yes, we've got a 31-year-old managing us. How many times are the commentators going to mention that? It's going to be like the new Dan Burn thing, isn't it? How many times can we mention his height? But yeah, I'm really excited by it. And to be honest, out of all the names that have been floated around, when his name came up and I read what I read on him, I was the most excited for him. So I'm glad we landed him.
Yeah, it was an exciting appointment. Dagan, as the resident Albion Obsessed optimist, what would you say to people who perhaps are a bit apprehensive about employing someone as a head coach of a Premier League team from the Bundesliga 2 with relatively, little amount of experience? What would you say to those people? I mean, obviously, it's no secret that we were probably going after McKenna from Ipswich. He, decided to stay at Ipswich, which for what it is worth, I think that's a great move for him. He just, took them up from the Championship or to League One to the Championship and Championship to Premier League. So I admire that and respect that. But perhaps Hürzeler wasn't the first choice. 31 years old, the Bundesliga 2 league. That's sort of like in terms of like the league system in the world, it's like ranked in the mid-20s, I want to say, which is around League One level. So quite apprehensive, but you're an optimist. What do you think?
I am an optimist. I think we are taking a chance on hiring someone truly great. Right? Anyone who's reached this level, even to be at the second tier in the Bundesliga and then to bring his team to the top tier, this is a talented human being. To have taken any team at a high level at his young age and led them to win a league is no small feat. It's clear that he is drinking in influences from top coaches and top ideas around the world. It seems that he's quite flexible and adaptable. And I think with our prior genius, if we were to pick out the fatal flaw, the hubris that may have been his unraveling and may be the very reason why he didn't land the level of job we expected that De Zerbi might land, was because of that fatal flaw. And it at least seems on the surface that our new manager does not possess that same trait and is more adaptable, despite, loving his system. At least what we've read so far, it seems that he's going to be more adaptable. And I think everything I've read suggests that this could truly be an inspired choice. So I am, not surprisingly, incredibly optimistic. And I'll leave it there.
Fantastic. I like your optimism, Dagan. For a cynic like me, it's nice to have that balance. I'm just going to bring your attention to the comment I just flashed on screen there before breaking, obviously, the lovely fourth squares. It was from Tom saying his tactics, Fabian's tactics, are similar to what we've been used to, but he plays with a back three. If he sticks with that, who starts at the back then? Kurtis. Let's unpick that for a little bit. The similar sort of style of play to Roberto De Zerbi will probably be a big help in that transitional period. Obviously, players in and out are going to be really interesting, and we will come to that shortly. But having a coach with a similar identity in terms of playing possession-based football, quite good in very tight spaces, that's going to be a real plus, Kurtis, for the players who have played that way under Roberto De Zerbi now for 1.5 seasons.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, that's just sort of Brighton's identity. I'd say now. I believe that we want to go for more of an attacking style anyway. So he just fits, and he's really exciting young prospect. And I to be honest with you, the managerial race went exactly how I thought it would go. I knew it would be a guy I'd never heard of because it's just what we do. I'm very, very excited to see what he says on the second, or the was second, right? He's in the interview. So it'd be good to understand, what he has to say, and it'll be just be interesting. I'm really looking forward to it. Can't wait.
Yeah, it's we talked on the group chat a little bit about the video he posted. Sometimes I'd rather just wait for the genuine and to the press, and here he is. Some of those selfie videos seem a bit forced and a bit, I don't know. But no, it'll be nice to hear him chat, as you say, Kurtis, on the second, and start, the press, like Johnny Cantor, Andy Naylor, all those guys really start asking him some questions, and we can get to know a bit more about him and his So like what he's got planned for us. Joe, back to the second part of Tom's comment there, which was playing with a back three. If we do go back to a back three system, Joe, something that Dunkey, Webster, and even Van Hecker when he played at Blackburn would be used to. Who starts for you at a back three?
For me it would be Dunkey, Jean-Paul Van Hecker, and Igor. I think all three of them possess a lot of qualities that can play in a system like that. You've got Igor and Van Hecker who could be given a license to go a little bit more forward when obviously the tactics in the game allow us to. And then you do have some incredible players who can play wing back as well. Obviously Barco coming through. I'd love to see him given a little bit more freedom going forwards, because at the end of last season he looked absolutely incredible. And young Jack Hinchelwood, what can he do from wing back? You know, we saw how good he was defensively. We saw how good he was going forwards, getting a few goals and causing teams all sorts of problems in the Premier League and in Europe. So we've got the players to operate that system for sure. It's just that midfield that you have to sort of question and worry about a little bit. I read somewhere that Hürzeler likes to play without a midfield, so that'll be good. We could just play everyone going forwards, and I'm sure that'll work absolutely fine in the Premier League. But yeah, there's a few different things from his system that I don't think would translate into the Premier League. I think he can't be as free as he was in the Bundesliga too. With the team that he had going up, and done a fantastic job. But coming into the Premier League, I think he's going to have to be a little bit more rigid with how he sets his team up. But we're at the start of the transfer window. We've got lots of players rumored to be coming in, and it's a really exciting time. And if the club recruit as well as they have done in the last 3-4 seasons, then I'm sure we're going to have more than enough for Hürzeler to do really well for us.
Yeah, I think you're on to something, Joe. I think you did mention something key there about making sure that he adapts, because I think one of the big criticisms of Kompany was when he came up with Burnley, he didn't adapt. He just wanted to keep playing the same football that they played in the Championship, and it didn't work, which is why they got relegated. Before we start talking about transfer rumours in and out, Dagan, two players that are currently with the team, two defenders, which we may see varied fortunes for depending on the system we play. And that is Pervis Estupiñán and Adam Webster. So I'm going to start with Webster. I think it's fair to say that Adam Webster struggles in a back two. Well, I say a back two, a centre-back pairing. However, under Graham Potter in a back three, he was largely excellent. So my first question for you, Dagan, is do you think we'll see Webster's career revived? And my second question, Dagan, is if we revert to this sort of 3-4-3 system with the left-sided player being sort of a wing-back midfielder role, do you think Pervis will adjust to that sort of role?
On the first front, I agree with you. I think Webster is more suited to having more freedom and to not be as singularly relied upon defensively. I think the key to that obviously is going to be what kind of, two midfielders we put in front of those three center backs. If we have the kind of personnel that can protect center backs when they, drift forward into the midfield and, play more of an attacking style, then great. If not, we may see some of the same foibles that we experienced early this year when Webster was on the pitch. But no, I think it's certainly possible that this could resuscitate his time with us. I know many of us kind of expected he might be on his way out this summer, but this system could be the very thing that brings him back to prominence. I would still say he's likely the fourth choice among the present center backs. And I'm intrigued. There hasn't been a lot of talk about center backs. We had a link to Calafiori, who's been linked to a million clubs since then a couple weeks ago. He's incredible, and he's acquitted himself quite well in the Euros. So I imagine there are many eyeballs and high price tags coming for him. But it wouldn't be shocking if we did try to find a player like that who, was capable of playing center back, playing as an outside back, playing as an outside midfielder. And that was sort of what Igor was advertised as. We didn't get to see him playing in those roles. Similarly, I think Estupiñán can adapt to this system because he's certainly skillful getting forward. It's the competition between Purvis and Barco will be interesting because it does seem the role is more tailor-made to Barco's versatility. It's just going to be, I think there may be a competition there. And, what a luxury to have two guys in the same spot who could play the role ably. But yeah, I'm excited to see. And again, I think it's going to be interesting to see what kind of players we bring in to deploy this system and how the players adapt. I think the real beauty of having a new coach sometimes is a refresh button hit on who owns a position, who are the starters, and that can mean less. So, I think if Osman comes in and he's one of, our best 10 outfield players, we might see him on the pitch right at the very beginning of the season. I just think those old allegiances can die out, or those sort of stuck in ways of being, you've won the job, go out the window. So I'm excited to see what our young manager brings to the table in those decisions.
And on that note, I think we'll probably see Jason Steele sitting on the bench most weeks. I think Roberto De Zerbi was very, very admirably, perhaps unadmirably at other times, very attached to Jason Steele, to his detriment at times. You did raise a really good point there, Dagan, about the Barco Estupiñán sort of competition for that spot. I always think that competition breeds, the best out of people. We saw it, and I always talk about this one player, Matty Ryan, when he had the gloves and it was just him. He let his form dip, and obviously when he was eventually replaced, he threw his toys out the pram. So no, I don't mind competition at all. Kurtis, this is my last thing, I promise, before we can start talking about the ins, but it's a nice little segue. Kurtis, friend, you are the head of recruitment at Brighton and Hove Albion. Congratulations. What positions do you think we desperately need to sort of address this window? Forget the ins and outs that we could be seeing. If you are Kurtis, friend, head of recruitment, which positions are you looking at and going, yeah, we need to address this?
Well, Kurtis, friend, head of recruitment. We'll probably be looking for a right back. I feel like we've been needing a right back for quite some time, a few windows at least. And I think midfield will need to be addressed as well, because we don't know what's going on with Groß. Potentially Moder is leaving, from what I understand as well. We don't know what's happening there. So it will be good to get some new blood in those positions. But really, maybe another defender. But I know we've been wanting someone like Erin Cashin from Derby. We've been after him for the past couple of seasons as well. But there's lots of really good talent out there, but there's also a lot of teams that want a lot of the same players, as we know about with recent news. So it will be about just being sensible with who we get in, I think. And again, it will probably just be people I've never heard of. But yeah, I think ultimately midfield, a defender, and a right back definitely.
Yeah, I think you're probably much nailed on the head there. I think the positions that we need to address are probably no big secret. I think having that sort of right back / right midfielder is going to be a really important part. I do think Hinch would be filling in that role quite well, but then again, Roberto De Zerbi always said that Hinchelwood was like a Pascal Groß clone. And with the potential of Pascal Groß leaving to Germany, it's going to need a huge, gaping, massive chasm in the middle of the park. So we can't beat around the bush any further. Joe, Pascal Groß, the club have offered him an extension on his deal. He has 1 year contracted left. However, rumors have been circulating towards the end of last season that Frankfurt were interested in bringing him back home. But then German giants Borussia Dortmund have apparently sparked their interest. I hear that Pascal Groß was a Dortmund fan as a child. He's currently over in Germany with the German national team in the Euros. Joe, we have to prepare ourselves for the very real possibility that Pascal Groß will never pull on a Brighton shirt ever again. Tough one to take.
You say it like that. I'm with this tournament coming up, and when he broke into the German squad, I was always worried that going home would give him the taste of home, and that he'd just, after this tournament, just want to go back there and retire now. What is he, 32, 33? So he's approaching that age. I believe he wants to work it so his kids' schools aren't messing around at really important moments of their school life as well. So he wants to get his future sorted. Whether that last year at Brighton would give him more time to sort things out, I don't know. Obviously, I don't know his personal situation. So I think for us, we just have to hope that it does line up with something he wants to do, see out his last year and then leave. I don't think Borussia Dortmund would drop their interest after a year. I think Pascal Groß, he's like fine wine, isn't he? Just ages beautifully and is just such an incredible player, doesn't rely on pace. And, it's crazy now that we're going into our 8th season in the Premier League. He's been with us throughout all of it. And only now people are seeing just how good Pascal Groß is. So if I put on my realist head and I look at it as to how Pascal would look at it, Borussia Dortmund, that's a big club with a big history. And if he supported them as a kid and they come knocking, he's gone. And I don't think after the 7 years of service he's given us, we could begrudge him that opportunity at all. So if, God forbid, if Pascal Groß does leave this club in the next few weeks and it's to Borussia Dortmund, then he leaves with, my greatest respects, my greatest thanks for what he's given to this football club and the memories he's given us. And I just hope that he does really well and succeeds. I've never loved a player as much as I love Pascal Groß. He is one of my all-time favourite Albion players. So yeah, good luck to you, Pascal, if you do go. But really, speaking from the heart, stay another year just so we can give you a proper goodbye.
That would be nice, but the prospect of playing in front of that yellow wall to Pascal will be monumentally hard to turn down if such an opportunity arises. Now, of course, Dagan, he isn't the only German currently in Germany playing for Germany in the Euros at the club. Dennis Undav, who spent last season a very successful loan spell at Stuttgart, finished very strongly, scored lots and lots of goals. He has made it very clear that he would like to return to Germany. However, with Fabian Hürzeler coming in and making it clear that Pascal Groß and Dennis Undav are two players he's very keen to work with, might throw a little bit of a spanner in the works. Apparently, Stuttgart have a clause in the contract that means that they can buy him. I think it's for like £17 million. I could be wrong on the figure there. But Brighton also have a very interesting clause attached where they can buy him back for £1 million extra. So it could get a bit messy there, Dagan. Do you think the club have enough to convince Undav to stay? Or do you think it is what it is and Undav's gone?
I don't know that we have enough to convince him to stay. In part because I don't think he himself believes that he is the same level of player in this league as he is in that one. And to find belief and to feel like you found your place, especially when that place is home, I think it's a tall ask to say, no, come back to the Premier League and jeopardize, which, being seen as a high-level striker in your home country, right? I mean, if he comes back and flops, well, it's okay. Well, you reached your level there, but not here. And maybe that's a reflection of us, but I don't know why he would be happy to take that risk. I think he's going to continue trying to push his way out Stuttgart's going to have to pay the price, though. Right? I think that's the key. I don't expect we're going to give them a discount. They're about to get that amount for Guirassy from his release clause, so they should have the incoming funds to make that happen. Not sure whether that will need to be in this fiscal year or next, but I think it's likely to happen. I don't expect we'll see him in a Brighton shirt this year.
That's really disappointing. And I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you, Dagan, because I probably think you're right. But it's just disappointing. I was very disappointed when Dennis Undav went out on loan at the start of the last season, because I genuinely believe in the squad he is the most clinical finisher. I think we saw at the tail end of Roberto De Zerbi's first season with us, just how good he could be. I think in those last 6-7 games, he scored 5 goals. So he's definitely got the talent. And I really hope that Fabian Hürzeler can convince him to stay. But as you say, Dagan, I find it hard to believe.
Well, and I do question, I mean, that's the right thing to say for a new manager, but I do question a little bit his fit in the system with the sort of emphasis on quick counter pressing after losing possession by the attacking players. That doesn't seem like something that Undav would excel in, because he's not the paciest of guys out there. I agree with the clinical finishing, but I think from a negotiating position, right? Of course, we want to say that we want him back, whether that's true or not. Just grain of salt there.
No, I think it's worth mentioning. Now, Kurtis, as I've just sort of alluded to, Fabian Hürzeler has said he really wants Pascal to stay. He really wants Dennis Undav to stay. He's really keen to work with those two players. In a scenario where both of those two players leave, two players he's identified as key to what he wants to achieve here, what message do you think that sends to our new coach? Is it one of just it is what it is, or do you think it could spell a bit of doubt creeping into the young coach's mind?
I think it's more of it is what it is. I mean, if the Pascal Groß thing comes to fruition, then it makes sense. He's in the latter years of a career, and who wouldn't want to play for a club that they supported and play in Germany and all these other things. So that's a really enticing thing, and I will never begrudge him from that for that. So good luck to him if that does happen. And Undav, it always felt like to me he's had a foot out the door, and he never really felt it. And that could be due to a myriad of reasons. I always got the opinion that him and De Zerbi never really clicked. And that's sort of, I think, part of the reason what pushed him out of the door. And I think probably the same with because you have to be able to take the criticism. And I think people like Trossard, for instance, he couldn't take the heat. So he got out of the kitchen and drove to Berlin or wherever the hell he went. I can't remember where it was. But I just think Undav has had a lot of success where he's at now. And I feel like it would be beneficial for him to stay. I am a big Undav fan. I'd love to see him at the Amex at the start of the season, but I just don't think that's going to happen, unfortunately. But I feel like this won't dent the new manager at all. I feel like he will be fine with it. And I'm sure this won't. This is probably hardly the. Let me start again. Rewind, Curtis. Rewind. This is barely a setback, in my opinion. If this happens, I think he'll be absolutely fine.
Yeah, and keeping a player that doesn't want to be here, it very rarely works out well long term. So I think that's definitely something worth considering. And I've already said that I'm a big Undav fan. I really rated him from what I saw in that season, first season under De Zerbi. But I do think he was a panic buy from the club, which is odd because I think it was Potter's last full season. It was January. We were screaming for goals. There was a lot of pressure on the club to buy a forward, so they just bought a forward from Uncle Tony's other club, who then couldn't join us for another 6 months. So I do think I remember raising my eyebrows then, thinking this is a weird one. And there, I do agree. It's almost like he's had his foot out the door from the moment he got here, because he wasn't picked. We are led to believe there were some family issues that he had to deal with. So totally understandable why he wasn't featuring. But then he came good, and then he started that game against Chelsea in the US. He scored, did really well, and then he was gone. It was all very, very strange, in my opinion. But no, again, with Pascal and with Dennis Undav, if they're returning to Germany, they return with my full respect and appreciation for what they've done to the club. Yes, Dagan, it's like you're putting your hand up in class.
It is. It is.
Excuse me, Mr. Virgin.
I want to go on record as making a suggestion. If Pascal does leave this summer, we need to invite Dortmund for a preseason friendly in August of 2025.
That would be fair.
That would be the move, right? Like for a proper send off, like that would be really cool. Or we just get back to Europe and hope we draw Dortmund.
No, there's the optimist that we love in Dagan. But no, that preseason friendly sounds like a great idea. The Pascal Groß derby, and he could play one half for us, one half for them. Genius. The next player we're going to talk about, Joe, in terms of outs, we also have to talk about the rumor of a player in, because it seems very likely that we may be also losing another midfielder this summer in Yakub Moder. And now this story gets rather interesting and a bit spicy. So in January, it was reported that we were interested in Dewsbury Hall from Leicester. But of course, Leicester playing as well as they were playing in the Championship, he didn't want to leave. You can't begrudge him that. But of course, Brighton are well known for sort of tracking players for a long period of time. So it wasn't particularly surprising that we were interested again this summer. Reports are obviously varied, and obviously you've got to take everything you read with a mountain of salt. But it appeared that Brighton and Leicester had reached an agreement where we would swap Yakub Moder for Kieran Dewsbury Hall, only to find out that in the last minute, our good friends Chelsea Football Club intersected the deal, and it's all sort of fallen through. Now, whether you
Grass
believe
is green, water is wet. These are facts of life.
Yes. Whether you believe in this sort of FIFA-esque trade deal, Dewsbury Hall for Moder, I don't know. But generally, Joseph, how surprised are you that Chelsea once again seem to be going after our similar targets? Because it's not the first time.
No. I said on my Twitter that it's not the fact that we're missing out on Dewsbury Hall. Don't get me wrong, I would have liked him to come into the squad. I think he would have been a good option for us. But like you said in the group chat, Tom, he's not a headline marquee signing, really, I don't think. So he didn't excite me crazily amounts. So it's not the fact that we're missing out on him. It's the fact that every time, or 95% of the time, a target crops up and Brighton's name is mentioned, 1 or 2 days later, Chelsea Football Club will follow. And it genuinely is that Mr. Bean meme of looking over at someone else's exam and copying it. And the real Chelsea fans, the proper ones that go to Stamford Bridge week in, week out and passionately support their team, they must be sick to death of the way that their club is being run. Because they're copying, and I'm not going to discredit us at all, because our recruitment is absolutely fantastic. And we've been in the Premier League now going on 8 years this season. But they're copying Brighton. This is a team that won the Champions League 3 years ago. And they're copying us. Imitation is the greatest form of flattery. I know that.
Just quickly on that point,
but
Joe.
It's comparison.
Do you think that they are copying us, or is it just because we keep selling them our bloody staff?
That too. Yeah, that too. But it's just the way Graham Potter went, the way Todd Bowley has just poached staff member after staff member. He clearly adores the way that we run our football club. And who are we kidding? Who doesn't love the way Brighton run their football club, except for maybe Crystal Palace? But genuinely, the real Chelsea fans who have seen them win Premier League after Premier League, Champions League, 2 Champions Leagues, a Europa League, they must be feeling genuinely embarrassed that every time Brighton's name comes up, their name follows.
I'd also be
because
quite worried as well if I was a genuine Chelsea fan, because they've already got a £300 million midfield. Where does he fit into that?
exactly.
And I think you said it, Kurtz, on the group chat. He'll follow the money, and I also think it's worth mentioning he's also going to follow his old coach. But
Yeah.
if I'm a player who just won the championship, I want to go somewhere where I'm going to play football. I don't want to sit on the bench, which is what he's going to do at Chelsea. So I don't.
It's like they're running two clubs. They're signing massive marquee signings for £100 million, and they're going to be the player that changes our football club's fortunes. This is it. We've got the man. And then they're going after all these PSR signings and pissing me off as well. Like all these clubs swapping their players and finding loopholes as they do with their 8-year bloody deals and everything like that. But it's like they're running two ideas. It's like, okay, we need to recruit well like Brighton do, but we also need to spend big like Manchester City are. It's just a mess of a football club.
Do you think, and this is conspiracy time, do you think, Dagan, that Bowley's the sort of man who would buy players just because rivals want them, just to weaken the opposition? Because they have a ridiculously bloated squad. They have, as I say, a £300 million stacked midfield. Assuming they sell Conor Gallagher, which looks likely. Even then, he's not going to start. He's going to be on the bench at best. So where does he fit into this? Are they doing it just so we don't get him, or is there something else at play?
I think there's always that element anytime you're competing for a player against a team in your own league. Right? I mean, I think goes without saying, right? If they're competing with Liverpool for Caicedo, right? You want to win that battle. You sort of win twice, unless of course you overpay, and then you lose twice. As may be the case. Here, I never felt like KDH was worth the asking price. Now, if we were willing to let Yakub Moder go, and then we were going to get KDH for 25 million instead of 40 million, then that feels a little more palatable. Because for us, he would have likely come right in and been a starter. For Chelsea, it's a bit of a head scratcher. If they're going to spend 40 million or give up 40 million worth of assets. Now, again, depending upon how the deal is set up, they could set it up in a way that's advantageous to them. But Leicester, with their own PSR concerns, it's going to be interesting to see, if it is two separate deals. That seems most likely to me, because it would benefit them both. The way that we were setting our deal up to be a true swap, it sounded like, would have been largely beneficial to Leicester. And so, yeah. But if the player only wants to go to Chelsea or stay at Leicester, then that's where he's going to be. And frankly, I said yesterday, like if he's waiting on Chelsea when a deal's almost done with us, I'd rather not get him. I'd rather get somebody else. We need players that want to be with us at least for a short period of time before they make the jump to a purported better spot. Yeah, he'll get paid well, and if he's happy to be a rotational player and get paid well, then he'll be happy there. But there's just such a risk that Maresca won't be there 6 months from now. And then you have a new manager come in, and if you're out of favor, where does that leave you? It's a big risk. And, obviously he believes in the guy who was his manager and who he saw carry them up to the Premier League. Every reason to feel confident in that, but you're not just investing in that manager, you're investing in Chelsea's system. And I do think, the stockpiling of young talent, I think they've acquired some really, really good young players. Figuring out how it all fits together to meet the demands of their fans in that club is going to be a real challenge for any new manager stepping into that big of a role. So I'd love to say I wish them luck, but I don't. I hope they fail in every way. And
I like that, Dagan. I like the way you think. No, you're spot on. It's like it's like a couple of years ago with Alex Pritchard, apparently driving down the M25, gets the phone call, then buggers off to Norwich, I think. I'd rather him not play.
By the way, we then beat 5-0 3 months later.
Yeah, and then he went down to League One, so jog on. yeah, I don't want a player that can be so swayed so easy. I do think, as you say, and I think it was Joanna in the chat as well, Maresca going to Chelsea, that is going to be a huge pull factor, as is the extra money. But I totally understand why fans are so pissy because of obviously which team it is. Curtis, Posy Pals in the chat has said, how will Moder feel now we've been prepared to offload him? I think that's a really good point to make. We've made it quite clear that we don't really want Moder. We don't see him in terms of our future anymore. Do you think the deal to Leicester will still go ahead, or do you think he'll sort of have to come back and prove his worth?
It depends on what... it depends on how this goes, because I've heard rumours that him to Leicester could still be a thing anyway. But if we want him out of the door, I feel like he'll be gone either way. There'll be another club that could definitely do with a player of his caliber. I mean, he can be good. We've seen some individual good performances from him, just fairly inconsistent, I find. But if he does end up back at the club, it'll be interesting to see how he could play under a new management style, and if he would be willing to. If you'd be willing to come in and really give it a go. But I feel like he's out of the door regardless. So.
And you just put something in the comment section, Dagan, about Moder wanting to start. I think even with a midfield that Pascal Groß is no longer a part of, he still doesn't start. Because once Groß is gone, it will be Gilmore and Belabor, surely, in the midfield too. So, yeah, I don't think he's good enough to start for a team that want to be challenging top 10 in the Premier League. I think a lower Premier League side or a Championship side, fair. But, yeah, I think it's time he moved on. I do think the big injury he sustained has probably sort of hindered his career quite a bit. And I think we saw sparks when he played a bit further forward at the end of last season, but that was more probably out of necessity more than anything else. So
I have to give him credit. It was shocking that he registered our top speed of the season. That was mind blowing to me because I most of the time he looked a step slow. But I think it's more a case of he's just a big, tall guy, and when he stretches out, he can go fast, but it takes some time for him to reach that top speed. Maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe not as practically applicable speed as you would like.
It was a mad thing. Of all the players in our squad that you think are going to be quick, you think of Lamptey, March, Mitoma, Enciso's got a bit of pace about him. Even João Pedro, pacey. But Moder? Yeah, that was a really, really, really weird one. So let's see what the comments are saying. Andrew, there are so many London clubs all trying to be the best. As Brighton Hove Albion fans, we stand or we fall. Yeah, we do. But we never walk away up the fantastic Seagulls for the new season. Yes, that is very true. We are here regardless. And it's going to be an interesting summer. We are still linked to lots of exciting players. And as of what Joe sort of alluded to already, I wasn't overly impressed with the signing of, Dewsbury Hall. I saw a fantastic thing. I think it was We Are Brighton posted about Bowley getting confused and thinking it was another hotel he could sell. But, if he doesn't want to be here, then I'd rather not have him. Joe, I'm going to come to your boy from Inter Miami. Strong links with Brighton and Gomez from Inter Miami as our resident Inter Miami fan. Are you excited that he's, he could be on the club's radar?
Yeah, incredibly exciting player to be linked with. Another young Paraguayan compatriot of Julio Enciso, so it'd be nice to see them two link up for sure. He's just come back from quite a lengthy injury that he sustained at the start of this season. But before the injury, he was hitting incredible numbers. He was assisting. He was getting himself in amongst the goals. And he wasn't looking out of place alongside Suarez, Busquets, Messi, Jordi Alba. And I think that's the big thing. And I know you could say that those players are towards the end of their career, but their elite level is not to be argued with at all. So the fact that Diego Gomez can show that elite level as well, and again, we're talking about the MLS, so it's not some people might say it's not a good enough sample to see how that would translate to the Premier League. But I do see a lot of qualities in Diego Gomez that could really, give this team a lot of extra sort of versatility options as well, because he can play anywhere in midfield. He's played on the left-hand side for Inter Miami in the front three as well. So another versatile young player who can, come in and grow with an already young squad. Part of the Inter Miami part of me would like him to go back on loan out to Inter Miami, see out the season, and then come back and join us in December. But I think my Brighton level prevails, and I would like to see him join up with this squad as soon as possible, because he's a very exciting talent.
Yeah, and just quickly going to jump in the defense of the MLS, because a couple of years ago, Joe, I would have said exactly the same. I watch a bit of MLS. I follow the Vancouver Whitecaps, and I've watched their games many times and sat there sort of almost laughing at the goals that you can see conceded in the league, because some of the defending, some of the goalkeeping is truly, truly shocking. But I do think the MLS has come a long, long way in the last few years. I think I did a bit of research when we were talking about it. It's actually, I think it's ranked 9th best league in the world, which is, it used to be way, way, way down. So it's come on really, really far. So I don't think MLS is the sort of poor league it once was. I think it's probably comparable to the Championship in terms of quality generally, especially some of the better teams in the MLS. So I share your optimism. I share your excitement. He sounds like a good young player, a very Brighton-esque signing. So it'll be an interesting one to follow. Grant has just put in the chat about Somerville from Leeds. Apparently, we're very interested in him. And Dagan, you and Joanna have just been talking in the chat as well about Solly. Obviously, Solly March, another ACL injury, the second of his career. Big concerns about whether he'll be even remotely close to sort of the level he was pre-injury. So, Dagan, signing of Somerville from Leeds, that would be a really good bit of business. Obviously, you've already mentioned in the podcast once already, Osman returning from loan. He's an exciting young player as well. We've got Simon Adingra, Matoma returning from injury, and Ciso can play out wide. Do you think that a winger with Solly's sort of the big question marks about him and his return, do you think Somerville would be an astute bit of business?
Yeah. I certainly wouldn't be disappointed to see Somerville. He's pacey. He tore it up. He scored a ton of goals in the Championship. The recent links to Minta, who's a Newcastle player, but who was in Feyenoord last year, seems more likely of the two, maybe. There are PSR issues for both of those clubs. And so, if there was going to be a move, it would be imminent. The fact that Somerville's story has gone a little quiet makes me think perhaps that's gone a bit on the back burner. The other piece there is that Minta is a left-footed player. And I keep having the feeling, and maybe this is just me, that I know we're not in De Zerbi's system, but I feel like another left-footed attacking player would be helpful, because we're just, it's Solly and really not much else unless we decide to try Barco over there. And, Buonanotte has not shown himself to be incredibly comfortable in that right wing spot. So it's just interesting, right? Somerville was a link during the era in which we still thought De Zerbi was returning as well. But he's certainly a pacey player who's capable of pressing, we lose the ball. So I don't know. I wouldn't be upset with either. But just trying to read the tea leaves and see who might be more likely. And Minta seems to be the flavor of the day.
Yeah, I saw some links earlier about with Minta, who'd been spending the year on loan at Feyenoord. And there's another player apparently we're interested in from Feyenoord, which is Mats Weifer, a central defensive midfielder. And he's one that I actually genuinely am quite excited by. He looks very, very handy. And I see, Dagan, you're nodding your head vigorously. Have you seen his clips? Have you looked at his stats?
Brett, well, his stats are incredible, right? And I know there's the Eredivisie grain of salt to be taken there. as there's some critique of players from that league coming over, and I think particular with Brighton, as I've heard in the past. But the passing, you can't fake. The vision, like, to me, that's one thing that just translates. When you can see the ball that's, a 3 passes away, but you can make it in one pass across the length and width of the field, off a quick turn. I mean, yeah, the guy just seems to, he would bring defensive chops that we haven't had while also bringing the attacking capabilities of Groß. And that, to me, is the type of player that we need. And he's big. He wins the ball in the air. He's like 6'2", big shoulders. We do not have a presence, and haven't had really in my time. Maybe Moder theoretically is that guy, but I haven't seen him to be that guy in the time that he's come back, and albeit a brief go. But no, I mean, among the recent links, he's the one that has excited me the most. In particular because it seems realistic. Like, Calafiori is incredible, and I'd be blown away. But the links to him are so widespread to some of the biggest clubs in the world, that seems like, a pipe dream. But Weaver seems like, it could happen. I think I saw maybe Milan was interested at one point, but there hasn't been a lot of other noise around him. And Milan is in for a ton of people, so it's hard to know where they're really focused.
Yeah, I say with rumors, it's always, I would always advise anyone to take everything with a grain of salt, because Brighton play things so close to the chest. I mean, I did a bit of research before coming on the pod tonight, and we've talked about Minter. You've just mentioned him there. There was Wesley from Flamengo, who we're apparently rumored to be interested in. Another lad called Brian Aguera from Newell's Old Boys in Argentina. Apologies if I butcher the pronunciation. Malik Yalkuye from Ivek Göteborg in Sweden. So there's lots of sort of rumors stoking away. But as ever, I'd be surprised if half of them were true. There is one thing, Curtis, that Joanna has just put in the chat, and I think it's a really good talking point. With Roberto De Zerbi, you had a man who was quite well known for his passion, for his enthusiasm. He'd played football, European football, with Shakhtar, and he was almost a bit of a big pull into the club, because people would want to come and work with him. And we were also very blessed that we also were embarking on a season with European football for the first time in our history. We don't have European football. We have a relatively unknown manager who is still considered in many circles to be an exciting manager. But can you see a situation, Curtis, where no European football, young, inexperienced manager, could that put players off coming to Brighton and Hove Albion?
Potentially some, but I feel like some will look at how we are developing young players and how we give them a lot of game time, and I feel like this could be a club for me. I could get my opportunities here. I feel like it could also be kind of exciting for some. They're thinking, oh, this is sort of relatively unknown. This could be different. I have to give it a go. But I totally understand why some might not want to. But I feel like ultimately a lot of players will look at how we're run. I feel like that will be a really attractive thing to come for that reason. We give, as I say, lots of opportunities and lots of development. And I feel like hopefully that would quell any sort of worries about age or experience.
Yeah. And I think it's also worth mentioning, we also do it from the other end of the spectrum as well. We also are a good place for players maybe entering the twilight of their career. Think of Lallana, Welbeck, Milner, who are experienced pros who come to Brighton, and then we sort of help them on their path to coaching. So, Jason mentioned in the comment, do you think we're going to go after those sort of mature players? I think it's very likely that we may see another player of that sort of age range brought in to help support our young squad, because I think you're right, Curtis. I think we are a club that we can proudly say, look, we give more minutes to young players than any other club in the Premier League. Look at our goal scorers. We've got, what was it, Dagan, 4 players in the top 100 young, like golden stars, 5 players So this is a club where we're going to develop you, and then when big clubs come and knock in, we ain't going to stand in your way. So I do think that's worth mentioning, Curtis.
Yeah, Tom, if I may, I mean, 5 of the top 100 players under 21, which excluded Enciso and Barco, the rest of the Premier League combined had 6. Brighton have 5. Just let that sit. For all of our hand wringing about, what we've been doing, our talent identification has been very strong and continues to be very strong. I think that's going to be the case with our new young manager. I think it'll be the case with our signings this summer. Again, I'll remind you, I'm here because I believed in the vision of Tony Bloom. I'm still here for that reason. I'll shock everyone by projecting us to do better than anyone else this offseason. And but yeah, I feel really good about things, and I don't want that to be lost under the short-term disappointment of we lost a player to Chelsea. Because I'll be candid, that was one player that I wasn't especially sold on to begin with.
Oh, you got me pumped there, Dagan. I'm really after that. Oof.
Just want to stand up and salute.
That's why I'm here, Curtis. That's why I'm here.
Tom, can we talk about the return of someone else who isn't a player, and we don't know what capacity he is?
The return of the
in
Mac.
yet. But
Return of the Mac. Return of the Mac. You lied to me.
Once again.
I wish McAllister was coming back.
This is why you tune into the Albion Obsessed podcast,
Exactly.
people. It's not for our fantastic football insight. It's for bits like this that are completely daft. Sorry, Joe.
Rock Radio 102.0. That's what we're doing here.
So sorry, Toma Hamed. I'm trying to give you a shout out. But yeah, the return.
Israeli men.
Oh my days!
Israeli men.
I quit live on air.
Breaking.
That's what we used to sing. That's what we used to sing.
Breaking from Dagan. Breaking.
Breaking. From iSport, which has 98,000 followers, and Mark Douglas, who has 74,000 followers. Brighton lead Everton in race to sign Newcastle winger Yakub Moder. Thought I would break in with that.
Well, there you go. Poor Joe. He's like, you desperate to talk about Tom Hamed, and he's been interrupted 3 times. Sorry, Joe. Go on. Say your words.
It's okay. It's all right. Yeah. So yesterday, a picture was posted on Tom Hamed's Instagram, and he was outside of the training ground, and the caption was "Back to the Future." I done a little bit of digging. He shared his wife's story on his Instagram story, and I went to look on her Instagram story, and it seemed that they were having a tour of the training ground. And a lot of the comments in Toma Hamed's post were very much of a good luck, you deserve this, that, and the other. So Toma Hamed may or may not be coming back to the Albion. In what aspect, I don't know. But I think that's so good that we're giving him. Tom just said Toma Hamed versus João Pedro penalty shootout needed. It will be going on for hours. But yeah, if he's coming in as a forwards coach, and he is going to be coaching João Pedro on how to take a penalty, we will never miss a penalty ever again. So yeah, I think that's worth mentioning, and just seeing Toma Hamed come back to the Amex, and yeah, hopefully he gets a good welcome home.
I certainly hope so. And I'm just going to quickly say, I was really hoping, Joe, after that Back to the Future, I did a bit of research. I was really hoping you would say, so I did a bit of research. It turns out it was a film from the 1980s about a boy called Marty McFly who went back into the past in a DeLorean. And we'd all be like, oh.
Yeah, now that would be the unhinged content from the Albion Obsessed podcast that you would expect.
Come to know and love.
I know.
Right then. So just as we close in on the hour then, guys, let's look ahead a couple of weeks, because we are just under a month away from our tour of Japan. And by tour, I mean our 2 games that we're playing out there. So the first one is on Wednesday, the 24th of July against Kashima Antlers. And then we face Tokyo Verdy 4 days later before playing QPR. So just under a month. I'm going to ask each of you before we sign off today, what would your dream sort of but realistic wish list be between now and then in terms of a player you'd want to see brought in or something you'd like to have seen sort of change from here to then? Joe, I'm going to come to you first.
Are you going to interrupt me?
I will try not to.
Oh, thank you, Tom. My hope and my wish, Curtis, is that we do not release that awful rumored mock-up of a shirt that has been circling for the last few months. That zigzag, if no one's seen it, look up Brighton 24-25 home shirt. It'll be on Google Images. It is absolutely horrific. If that's our new shirt, I will write a very, very angry letter to Nike, and I will CC in Paul Barber because Nike are a disgrace. But seriously,
I'll wear it, but I won't be happy about it.
Yeah, exactly. I'll probably buy it. I just hope we get a couple more players in, that the squad can be a little bit more settled, and then we can go to Japan and have a great time. And hopefully Karu's still with us. Stay with us, Karu.
He's one player we haven't actually talked about tonight. I don't actually think Karu Matoma will be going anywhere just yet. Not saying it won't happen, but certainly before the Japan trip. I think selling him before the Japan trip would be just business stupidity, and I don't think we're that stupid. So unless we brought in another Japanese player, which could happen.
I really thought when they done the US Summer Series, I really thought they were going to release a shirt over there so that our lovely American guys could buy the shirt over there, but they didn't. They just sold you generic Premier League crap.
Boo. Dagan, less than a month to go until those games I've mentioned. What would you like to see? What would be good progress?
I would like to see the 77% of Brighton fans that said we would spend less than 90 million be wrong. That's what I would like to see, because I think I don't see how we add the talent that we need to add without spending that much. Given what we've already named, I mean, I think we need to add 2 players to the midfield. Presumably some additional right back, even if it's not a definitive number 1 right back, or someone capable of playing that role if we do play it. I guess to your point about having a back 3, perhaps it's a center back who's capable of playing right back.
Well, that's Beltman, surely.
Surely. Yeah, I guess that's fair.
Who's Shirley?
I hope we see another winger, preferably a left-footed one. Yeah, I think we need another player with a defensive profile. I'll say that. And if we don't get Undav back, we probably need another player up top too. I mean, we'd be left with Welbeck, Ferguson, and João Pedro, who can slide up there, but who frankly looked his best playing behind Ferguson. Certainly did fine up there, but I don't know. We've got a lot of players who want time. It's going to be interesting to see where within Fabian's system those guys are the best. But yeah, I think we'll spend that much. I really do. But I hope that I'm right. I'll be worried if I'm not.
Unlike you to be worried about anything, Dagan. Curtis, what's on your dream wish list for the next month?
I mean, I have to echo a lot of what Dagan was saying, really. I mean, I want to see some intent from the club in regards to forking out some money for some decent players. I feel like, we heard that Bloom wants to keep pushing and keep us in that top 10 positions, and I feel like we need to really bring in some real marquee signings. I think it would be a great statement for us to do so. I hope we get Matt Swiefer. I think he's a really exciting player. I'd love to see him in a Brighton shirt. But ultimately, just I would like to see some good statement players, ones that really complement the team. But ultimately, they have to be the right choice. I don't want players in just for the name, you know. So I'm sure whatever the club do will be the right.
Ansu Fati.
No.
No, but I was saying, Curtis said for the name. That's what we signed Ansu Fati for, really, wasn't it?
Apparently, he's not in Barca's plans. Apparently.
I wonder
well, he's
why.
not in ours either.
Again, I wonder why. For me, I echo everything you've said. I think the club have got a big summer ahead of them. Really, really big. Probably the biggest we've had in a while. Although last season summer should have been bigger than it was, in my opinion, and I've been very vocal about that already. So I'm not just going to repeat old ground. But I hope the club do sign some first team ready players. That's a big one. Matt Swiefer for me is probably the one of all the players we've been linked to that I'm sort of the most excited about. I do think, as Dagan says, we need one of those right-sided, right back, right wing back, right midfielder, sort of one that can sit out on that right-hand side and do that, that up and down work in a 3-4-3 system, where you're not going to play without an out right back. I do think we need a player that can do that. A couple of years ago, I would have said we've got prime Lamptey, but obviously Lamptey's got injury problems up the wazoo. One thing I would like to see is the return of Jack Hinchelwood. I've missed seeing his young little face, appear in a Brighton shirt and just being one of the youngest players in the squad and looking one of the best. That was the highlight of my season last season, watching Hinchelwood play. So, Hinchelwood back in.
A refreshed Ferguson. I'd like to say. Hopefully, he can really pick up.
Ferguson, that's looking ready for the mentally ready for the season ahead. That would also be a big one for me. And as Joe says, a football shirt that isn't absolutely hideous. But yeah, maybe that last one might be wishing a bit too much when Nike is your kit supplier. So then there we have it, guys. We've sort of done a roundup of sort of all the big rumors. Obviously chatted our 2 cents on the manager, which we haven't done yet before. Obviously we'll hopefully be back in with some interim episodes in before we get to the summer series, especially when we release our shirts. We do love a good football shirt at Albion Obsessed, so we will of course put out some sort of review video. Before we sign off though, Joe, talk to the people about the new Facebook community.
Well, it's not new. It's something that I've slept on. It's been there for about 3 years, and I just haven't done anything with it. But there are just under 300 members in there. So if you just go over to Facebook, or I'll leave a link in the description a little bit later on, it's the Albion Obsessed podcast Facebook group. And I'm going to be using it to get feedback from all the episodes, because I feel like that's something that we have lacked on in previous seasons, and to get more fan discussion, more opinions, more voices onto the podcast, so we can project that out into the world in the way that we do it, and hopefully get a few of you on as the season goes in. We had a few guest appearances last season from some very good guests, like Andrew, like Matthew, Glenn, all the way from the USA as well. So it'd be good to see some more of your faces come on to this podcast and have your say about Brighton Hove Albion.
And I'll even sing Return of the Mac to you, unless you really don't want me to, in which case I wouldn't do that, because that would be inappropriate. But yeah.
And we also have to thank everyone for joining us this evening.
Of course we do.
For having some healthy dialogue.
Thank you. Not the other people.
The fan.
Yeah,
no, but we wouldn't be able to do it. We wouldn't be able to do this constantly without you wonderful people. So
well, we would. It's just that it wouldn't be very fun.
We would just be talking to a wall, wouldn't it?
Zero views or listens on podcasts.
Also, if you're all on Instagram, you should follow Shirt Obsessed. What a page. What a page.
Do that. Yeah. So me and Joe, for anyone who's vaguely interested in football shirts, me and Joe have started a new little sort of social media thing called Shirt Obsessed. And it's basically all about football shirts. We are trying to collect one shirt from each of the 92 football clubs. I'm currently at 63.
Nearly 69.
I'm currently at 4.
Cheers at 4. Oh my god. Yeah. Rip bank balance.
Does that even include Crystal Palace?
I have make no bones about it. I will be buying the 1989 Crystal Palace shirt, Virgin Airways. If you don't like it, don't care. I like football shirts, and I'm a completionist. I need the 92. I can't have 91. That would be ridiculous.
What happens when the clubs from League Two get relegated?
Oh, so I've already done that. So I have Forest Green Rovers shirts, and I've just moved them from the 92 rail to a different rail. And then when it was Bromley, when Bromley got
Impressive.
promoted, I bought their shirt. So
His home is just rails.
It
Everyone's
really
just
is.
rails.
Honestly, he's got a room
Oh
full of
my-
rails.
My poor
He
wife.
slides down the stairs like that on a rail. He does.
Whee! No, I was so digressing. I'm supposed to be signing off. All these poor people are going, for God's sake, come on, Tom. But no, the rail, I've got these, like the other shirts on. It's like that because it's cheap and it's slanted. So yeah, it's going really well. So follow Shirt Obsessed and you'll see some of my Mad 90 shirts. They're beautiful. Go on, Dagan.
I need to make another shameless plug. It's about to happen. The transfer rumor tracker is about to be back up. Of the 81 players to whom we've been linked that I've kept in the document since January, I've got another. I'm about 2/3 of the way through completely updating those players and the links.
He's dusting off the ancient tomes, everybody.
Yeah, so it's
exciting.
next couple of
the
days.
summer.
Next couple of days. Yeah, by the end of the summer, it'll be totally ready. No, by the next couple of days, it'll be out and about. And I'll be letting you know where to find it. So for those of you who have enjoyed that, and thank you to the many who have encouraged me for putting it together. It's a lot of fun, labor of love. And so it's coming soon.
Awesome. Yeah, please keep your eyes out for that, guys. We'll obviously plug that on our
Something
Twitter.
else to plug before we. I'm joking.
That if you go to one shop club and you enter code Albion Obsessed, you will get 10% off vintage shirts. So there you go.
10%. That's a great deal. Great deal.
This is it's just gone, isn't it? But no, we can tell we've been gone for a while.
We're back, baby.
We are
Come
back with all of
on.
our absolute nonsense. So if you do enjoy nonsense and the occasional insightful thing said about football, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content if you haven't already done so. Thank you for joining us on this live show. We'll see you again next time. Take care. Oh, I forgot to say, wherever you may be, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Knee slide. Get